Welcome to episode number 302 of the Marine Layer podcast. We welcome on Mariners broadcaster Aaron Goldsmith to talk about the Mariners' hot finish to the season, calling Cal Raleigh's home run chase, the upcoming American League Division Series, and much, much more.
Your guys' reminder, make sure you're staying on top of all of our stuff. You can do so by going to download these episodes if you're listening to the podcast and also leaving that 5-star review. It really does help. If you're on YouTube, go hit subscribe. You can also drop a like and leave a comment. You can find all of our stuff on our website. That's marinelayerpod.com. All our episodes are there. You can go get your merch over there. Sign up for our Patreon. Look at our live show schedule. That's all at our site, marinelayerpod.com. And follow us across social media at marinelayerpod.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. One from Jansen. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game at 7-7.
And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network. Recording on Tuesday afternoon, September 30th. And before we get to Goldie, I will just add one thing off our conversation from our last episode. I'm still going to stand my ground on who I would rather the Mariners play, being the Tigers over the Guardians. They did not make my case very easy today.
You watched Tarik Skubal, right? Like, you watched what he did to the Guardians.
I did. He was facing a AAA lineup, essentially.
A AAA lineup and a Hall of Famer.
Exactly. 14 strikeouts and 7 2/3. Not really making my case very well where I say, yeah, I mean, the Mariners could probably beat him in a playoff series.
So just remember, if your take is you want to play the Tigers, that's fine. I don't think either side is abhorrently wrong. But just remember, you essentially have got to go win all 3 games that Skubal's not going to pitch if you want the Tigers.
Game 1 wasn't going to prove that I was right. Game 2 and 3 are going to need to prove that I was right. I'll say that. When the Tigers' lineup stays inconsistent, when their bullpen kind of falters, the starters outside of Tarik Skubal falter, like that is what is going to need to prove my point. So we'll have to see. But here's what does need to happen. They need to go 3 games. The Guardians need to win on Wednesday when this episode comes out, no matter what. You should all be Guardians fans. The series should go as long as possible. And then game 3, how about this? Guardians lead, let's say Jack Flaherty would start game 3 for the Tigers?
Yeah, and for the Guardians, it'll be likely Logan Allen, right? If not, then Slade Ciccone.
Jack Flaherty gets knocked out in the 4th inning, and guess who comes out of the bullpen for the Tigers down a run?
Tarik Skubal?
Yes. Please.
So then,
because the season's going to be over otherwise. They need to be in full-on desperation mode. So you can get the best of both worlds. You can get the flawed starting pitching and bullpen of the Tigers without having to face Tarik Skubal twice.
Yeah, because if he does that in game 3, you're only getting him once.
Which is perfect. Which works out, I think, better for the Mariners.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but sure. You are right that every single person listening to this, no matter which dog you have in the fight, you should be rooting for this series to go 3 games. There's no doubt about it. Let both these teams use as much gas as possible. Make their travel schedule harder, give them less rest days. 3 games is the goal. So even if you're rooting for the Tigers like TJ is, root for the Guardians to win on Wednesday. Now, I will say, we are going to have a deciding vote here on this pod. I'm pro Guardians, you're pro Tigers. Goldie gives his take on this too. So if you're curious where the vote is going to swing, you'll have to stick around and listen to what Goldie says.
Goldie also gives some insight on the Mariners' finish to the season, what turned around the season for the M's. Also, some really fun insight on how one goes into calling a historic home run chase. Because what everyone remembers, Lyle, with these home run chases, yeah, it's the guys hitting the home runs too, hitting the home runs. The calls are pretty memorable too, and Goldie walks us through a pretty detailed process of how he went about handling a historic, once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-franchise moment of Cal Raleigh hitting 60 home runs. I thought that was really cool.
You'll have to listen to it yourselves, but you can tell how much calling Cal's home run chase and that 60th homer really meant to Goldie. You can just hear it in his voice listening to him talk about it. It was a really fun conversation, as it always is with Goldie. So that's going to be the bulk of this episode. As a reminder to you guys, Friday's podcast will be a full series preview of Mariners and one of the two AL Central teams. We're obviously going to wait for that series to finish on Thursday before we podcast so we can do the full series preview. Today we've got Goldie. It was awesome. And then, Friday we'll be getting everybody ready for the start of the Mariners Zone series. So it's going to be a quick week. Things are going to go pretty fast. And I'm really excited for it. Before that, let's take a quick pause. Remind you guys, you can always go check out our friends over at Pagacci's Pub 85 if you need a place to go watch some games. If you want to go watch the Mariners this weekend over there, you can go get some great food. You can hang out with your friends. You can watch all the games you want. There's 20 TVs in the place, and there's also pool and darts if you're looking to get in on any of that, along with happy hour drinks that are $3 and $4 from 2 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So those are really good deals. If you're interested in any of that, and we hope you are, you can go check out Pagacci's Pub 85 in Kirkland.
We won't keep you guys any longer. Let's get you to the interview with Aaron Goldsmith. All right, we got friend of the podcast and Mariners broadcaster Aaron Goldsmith on with us. Goldie, thanks for taking some time. How have your emotions been these last 3 weeks of Mariners baseball? Where was the low and then where was the high?
Hey, guys, good to be with you. The low was Tampa Bay. I know that was more than 3 weeks ago, but that was the low. Nobody saw this coming after Tampa Bay, that's for sure. It's been incredible. What a fun ride it's been for the Mariners. And you think back to that Astros series, one of the most memorable series that this franchise has had in a long time. And then once you got through that, like you knew it was coming, right? Like you knew what was ahead of you. And you knew that a division championship was just days away at that point if you took care of business. So it was that homestand had obviously some very memorable moments. And then it felt very weird. I don't know about you guys. It felt very strange just to kind of like coast to the finish line. Like the Mariners are not used to doing that. So to play some meaningless games in a good way at T-Mobile Park to end the year was something that I was not expecting.
Is it fair to say that clincher day against the Rockies that Wednesday, to the exact opposite of making it a nail-biter, the way we described it to people is it almost felt like a 9-inning party at the park that night because Cal and Julio go back-to-back early in the game. It essentially feels over. You're playing the worst team in the league. And there was no kind of biting on your fingernails, waiting for the final out of the ninth or waiting to see Cal walk it off like 3 years ago. It was just, like you said, coast, and everybody kind of got to celebrate all the way leading up to the final out. So I thought that, does a 9-inning party describe that well?
Yeah, it does, because as soon as that you had that first inning, you thought, well, this one's in the bag, which maybe wasn't the greatest. I'm sure the players didn't feel that way, but for everybody else who was just watching the game, you felt like there was no chance for the Rockies at that point. And with the crowd was electric, incredible. It was. I thought that was one of the great nights in franchise history, truly, and certainly one of the greatest nights in T-Mobile Park's history, with Cal hitting 59 and 60, and then obviously the division championship. What an incredible emotional night in so many ways. And just instead of kind of having that ninth inning release that we've become so accustomed to over the years with the Mariners, just to kind of be able to put your feet up, enjoy a beverage if you're out in the crowd, and just have a really fun time at the ballpark on a night where you're going to see something that maybe you haven't ever seen before in your life for the Mariners, which was very special and a very fun game to call for sure.
Honestly, the only crowd I compared that Wednesday clincher crowd to was the playoff game. Is that out of line, or is there anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, the playoff crowd, which pretty soon we'll be able to talk about more than one playoff crowd, but that's what we certainly remember. That was insane and incredible. But that one was like you could feel it bubbling up even an hour before the game. And from where we sit in the booth, you kind of get a good feel for the timing of the day as you're working on your notes and you're finishing up your scorebook and you're talking to a producer, you're talking to your analyst, whoever it might be. You kind of like subconsciously hear the certain PA announcements that always get read every night. And like in the back of your mind, when you hear Tom Hutler say certain things, you know that you're 30 minutes out, 20 minutes out, 10 minutes out, right? And your other cue is when you kind of lift your head up every once in a while, you start to see the lower bowl fill up a little bit more, and all of a sudden on that day when you looked up at your normal time, 15 minutes before you're going to go live, you look out and you're like, oh my gosh, the lower bowl's almost full, right? And then you look up to the 200 level and you say, well, that's almost full. And then the real key is the seats in the upper right field above the Hit It Here Cafe, right? Like most games, those are pretty sparse. And on that particular night, you're looking up there and you're saying, man, there's a lot of bodies up there. So the whole day kind of felt like it sped up because of that, and just all the normal cues that you have at the ballpark. You're not used to seeing that many people in there that soon, but everybody wanted to be there and be a part of history. So it's the fans helped make that night so special. There's no question.
Did you have one favorite moment from this stretch? Is there one that sticks out that either was your favorite to call or your favorite to take in? Is there one that jumps out?
Well, it's probably unfair to say but when Cal hit in 60 I feel like I've said a lot of things about Cal this year where you say like, well, he can't do this, and then he doesn't. So I don't want to shortchange Cal before giving him a chance, but there's a good chance. I'm sure you guys would agree. We never see somebody hit 60 home runs again in the Mariners uniform. And my best way, before somebody thinks I'm crazy, my best way that I can defend that is, Rick's been calling Mariners baseball for 40 years, and that's the first time he's ever seen it. So could it happen again? Of course it could. It's baseball. Anything can happen. But I wouldn't bank on it. What we just saw was pure history from Cal Raleigh. So to be able to be a part of that in some small way was amazing and truly a dream come true, and something that you don't even dream of, if that makes sense at all. The Robles catch in Houston was something that real Mariner fans will talk about for the rest of their lives. My vantage point of that was kind of unique because when there is ever a fly ball to the outfield, that one of two things can happen. One, there's a play at the wall. Or two, there's going to be what I believe to be a diving catch coming up. I always turn my head to the monitor, and I want to look at it from the monitor so I can have a much clearer and closer look as to simply where the ball is. Like, is it in his glove? Did it hit the grass? Did it go off his glove and over the wall? Did it hit the top of the fence? Like, you can just see much clearer, and I want to be able to see exactly what you see at home. So for those two reasons. So when that ball left the bat and went out to right center field, my initial instinct was, I think Julio will have a chance to make a running, sliding, diving kind of catch. So that was my mindset as I turned my head to the monitor. And so as I'm looking at the monitor and calling the play for just those few seconds that ball was actually hanging up in the air, the camera is on Julio, right? It's on Julio running to his left towards right field. And that's all I'm seeing because that's all you're seeing at home on your TV. And then Victor Robles just comes flying in and makes the catch that we'll all be talking about forever. And so the surprise in my voice is genuine because that was the first that I saw Victor Robles and even conjured up the idea that he could be in on this play. I didn't think that was going to be his ball. So that was as much of a fun surprise for me as it was for everybody else at home watching it on their TV, because we both saw Victor Robles at the exact same time. And my guess is that my reaction is probably pretty much in line with what everybody else was on their couch.
I was going to say that's what a top 5 moment in Mariners history.
Maybe.
Safe to say?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I do struggle. I appreciate where you're coming from on that, Lyle. I do, or TJ, I do struggle with that simply because, like, I don't know what happened on May 27th of 1989, right? Like, stuff like that happens. But when you talk about...
Probably nothing memorable.
But when you think about, like, the context of helping to secure a win, right? And that series in particular, and against that team in that ballpark, gosh, it's hard to think of many, at least defensive plays that have been more meaningful than that. To your point, certainly in my time with the Mariners, this is my 13th year. I can't think of many that were more impactful than that, and just something as unforeseen and as momentum swinging as that was, right? If that ball drops, the Mariners could still win that game. But man, it shifts a lot more towards the Astros side if that ball drops. There's no question.
It's crazy because And this is what I appreciate about that camera angle and Victor Robles basically coming out of nowhere, because what you saw and what all the fans saw at home sounds like is essentially what Carlos Correa saw too, because he was asked post-game and he says, the whole time I'm watching Julio and out of nowhere comes Victor Robles. So it's like everybody saw the exact same thing, where it was like, where did he come from?
Yeah, I mean, it is so funny that for a guy who had a lost season, right? A guy who had great expectations for a good reason based on the year before, and then was out since the earliest days of the year and had to sit there in Arizona rehabbing by himself, feeling disconnected, feeling like he can't be a part of things, and watching a team that really needed him, like needed his presence on the field, in the dugout, in the clubhouse, needed him, for him to be given that opportunity and to come through in that big of a situation is remarkable. And for as much time as he lost this year, he sure made up for a lot of it with that one play.
Mm-hmm.
How do you prepare for a home run chase differently than you'd normally prepare for a broadcast like the one Cal was just on?
Cal Raleigh has made me a better broadcaster this year. There's no question, because I've had to think about things and process things and call things like I never have before. It's been really hard in a really fun way. I would gladly sign up for it year over year over year. Don't get me wrong. But there's two things about it that have been difficult. One, I have learned about myself. I function much better as a broadcaster when it just kind of happens and you don't foresee it. Or if you do, like a 4 home run game and the guy comes up for the 4th at bat, it's happening fast, right? And you haven't had a lot of time to think about it. Or that incredible Robles catch or a walk-off home run. Like those things it's in the moment and it's happening. And you just kind of read and react. As opposed to what Cal has taken us on, which is you're just literally waiting for him to hit another home run. And it could be for 2 at-bats, for a game. It could be for 5 games. You're just showing up to the ballpark, waiting for him to hit whatever that next milestone home run is. And then you are trying to balance being spontaneous and in the moment and having your genuine reaction to what just happened, while also knowing that there are some things that you have to say. Like when he passes Johnny Bench or Ken Griffey Jr. or Mickey Mantle, you have to say those names. You have to say whatever the corresponding number is. Like you need to actually document the history, right? But like what happens if he passes Johnny Bench on a home run off the Hit It Here Cafe windows versus on one that hits off the foul pole, or one that just gets over the seats, over the fence and into the seats? Or what if it happens on a walk-off grand slam? What if it happens when he homers for the second time that game? Or maybe from both sides of the plate. Like all those things that you're now trying to like balance, how do you incorporate that with the history and the moment? And do you focus on the score and the moment of the game, or do you focus just on Cal? Like, it was a lot, man. There was one time this year where Curtis Wilson is our producer, who I love, and he's been with the Mariners since the Kingdom days, producing Mariners TV. And there was one at bat this year for Cal where I got in talk back, and I said, "Hey, like think through this with me. If he homers here, and I'm not going to get all this stuff right, but this is the gist. If he homers here, it's his 30th homer of the year. He will have homered from both sides of the plate. It'll be his X number of games this year with multiple home runs in a game. He will tie Johnny Bench and have the second most in a season by a Mariner." Like it was like 9 bullet points of things that could happen, right? And he just said to me, "That's what I've got too." So now you're like, okay, well, I have to say some version of that in about 5-ish seconds, right? It really forces you to go into a game prioritizing what is the most important thing. And I give Curtis a lot of credit for this, because when this Cal Raleigh experience began, and we were in kind of mid-May, and it became clear at that point, like, oh, he's he is on a path where he's doing things where we're saying the most home runs by a Mariner through the end of May, or the most by a catcher through, like, remember all that? Like the kind of the timeline stuff? Curtis kind of pulled us all together in the booth and said, let's make sure that we're all on the same page, both graphics, production, and play-by-play, so that we know when he hits the next home run, we're all holding hands. Like, what I say is the same thing that the graphics pops up, is the same thing that the analyst is going to focus on, because there were a lot of forks in the road that you could take. And what we didn't want was me being in my silo of what I thought was the most important thing, and the production truck being in theirs, and the analyst being in theirs, and I make the call, and then the graphic comes up and takes it another route, right? And then the analyst goes in another direction. So it really created a lot of teamwork for all of us, which is one of the really fun things about baseball on TV, is it's a team sport. You have so many people involved in putting a broadcast together, unlike in radio, where you just have a couple. And then for me, it made for a lot of hallway meetings with Gary Hill, because Gary and I would have a little chat an hour or so before every game, and we'd say, okay, if he homers tonight, where are you going? Like, which of these two things do you think is most important? And we'd kick it back and forth, and a lot of times we agree. Sometimes we wouldn't. And when we wouldn't, we'd bring Alex Mayer in on the conversation. We'd say, Alex, what do you think? And so it was a really kind of once-in-a-lifetime thing where it got to a point where almost every home run, you knew you had something in your scorebook, and you would think to yourself, like, I got to say something along these lines, and I have to include this name and this number, because this is all-time baseball history that we're talking about. It was something that when I was kicking around in the minor leagues, I never knew this was going to be a problem that I'd have to tackle. Let's put it that way.
Did you by chance go back and watch any of the past like home run chases, like the 98 season or Bonds in 07? Did you look at any of that?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. There was a point late in this year where he was really getting to some kind of big boy territory, right? Where I was curious, like, how have other guys handled some of this? And so I just went on YouTube and I just searched Barry Bonds home runs, and there's all these montages, as you guys can imagine, of all of the milestone home runs. And it is really funny, just like how broadcasting has changed, how production has changed, like the difference between when a guy gets a milestone home run on the road versus at home, which is a subtle thing for the viewer, but is a massive thing for the broadcaster. I mean, to Cal's great credit, most of his milestones he did get at home. He passed Mickey Mantle on the road, but most, like the catcher one and the Mariner one, and then obviously 60, he got at home. And I can't even begin to tell you, it's night and day when he does it at home. Like, when he passed Mickey Mantle on the road, it's like, well, you want to get excited, but part of getting excited is having to get over the crowd. Mm-hmm. You have to get, when he hit 60, I had to get over 60, I had to get over 40 plus thousand people. When he passed Mickey Mantle in Kansas City, I didn't have to get over anybody. And so now you're needing to be excited without kind of going into full gear. And that makes it more difficult. I mean, and also you just don't have the crowd to emphasize the moment, which is the other part of it that helps just make those kind of calls, but more importantly, moments just sing, obviously, is when you have a sold-out house just going absolutely ballistic.
But I'd say on the other side, too, Goldie, you could say being at home makes it easier for you because you can just lay it out. Because the crowd will tell you everything that needs to happen.
Yeah, and that's what you want, right? Like, it creates a different challenge, but a challenge that's probably like one of my absolute favorites, which is how do you use the crowd to augment and further enhance the call? Because it's like riding a wave. I mean, you want to get up on the wave and then just ride. And so you want to kind of beat the crowd to the moment, or at least be in sync with the crowd. Like, you don't want this is real nitty gritty stuff here, but you don't want the crowd to like roar before you get up. Like, you want to be either ahead of it or in sync. And then it's just a matter of like, okay, man, you now have like 3 seconds. So give it your best bolt, your right hook, whatever you got, like the little cherry on top, in 3 seconds or less, and then you got to get out because you just can't talk over that. Like you don't want to and you can't, and it's just too special. Like do you guys ever? I don't watch a ton of golf, but whenever I see highlights of the Masters, one thing that always strikes me is how like there's nothing like when the guy sinks the final putt to win the Masters. There's like no graphics on the screen. Like all the screen is just the guy and his caddy and celebrating. Like there isn't like a big banner that says so and so wins. There isn't like a lower third score bug. There's normally just like that little watermark CBS logo. And it's like, okay, well, why do they do that? They do that because they're trying to break down every barrier that they can that tells you, the viewer, that you're watching this on TV. They're trying to submerge you in this moment as much as they can so that you feel like you're in Augusta. You're right there. And so we can't get rid of the score bug. Like we got stuff like that on the screen. We can't go quite CBS style on it. But when you have that big of a crowd, the point is like you want that line to be so blurred as best you can that you're not watching it on TV. You want to make people feel like they are there as much as they can be from their couch while simultaneously punching the moment in just the smallest way to add like that whipped cream and cherry on top that just makes it stand alone and then getting the heck out of there.
Did you start to feel butterflies at a certain point of his season? Whether it was when he was about to pass bench or whether it was 50, 55, 57. Like when he would come up to the plate, would you start to feel it at all?
I got very anxious. You guys remember this. He had some spells where it's like, okay, he hasn't homered in, I mean, for him, it was a long time, right? He hasn't homered in 6 games, 7 games, whatever it might be. And he's sitting on a number. He's sitting on his next swing being really meaningful for any variety of reasons. And I got anxious with that. Like, I just wanted to get it over with. Going back to how this conversation started, I just didn't, it made me uncomfortable going into every game, just kind of like everything stops when Cal bats. Nobody wants to talk over a pitch to Cal because you don't want to talk over a historical highlight. The production truck, we run nothing preceding his at-bat. Like, if you notice, when the lineup changed and Randy was batting in front of him all the time, if Randy flew out to right field, even if the right fielder made an amazing catch, like we never replayed it. We just walked Cal to the plate. So like there was no production on the front end of a Cal at bat. And our analysts, to their great credit, they were generally pretty short when Cal would bat. Now, they had full right to come in and out between pitches, but they knew they couldn't talk over a pitch. You just can't talk over a highlight like that, right? And so, and for me, like, I'm not going to talk about the funny thing that Cal did earlier that day during batting practice when he was about to hit his 50th home run. And part of me was like, I don't want to engage in a conversation now because we can't have a conversation because we're all focused on him. So it was just like the whole world stopped every time he would come to the plate. And there were moments where we're like, when he's sitting on 60, it's like, yeah, absolutely. But then there are other times where you got a day game in Atlanta and he's on 52 and a not so significant number by chance. And it's just like, okay, now the world just stops as we watch Cal bat. So it was just it brought its own unique set of rules, I would say, when Cal hit, especially in the back half of the year. But I was so once he got to 59, it was like game on, man. Like let's get this thing and let's get it. At that point, you knew it was going to be at home, obviously, because there's no more road games left. But it was like, you got to get to 60 now because you cannot end the year on 59. And to his great credit, he obviously did. So it was it's something I'll never forget. I will, like, there's a chance. I mean, who knows what the Mariners do in the next 20 to 30 years? But like, there's a chance that Cal hitting 60 home runs is, one of the top 5 memories that I certainly have as a Mariner broadcaster, just because it's just such historic stuff, man. It's just unthinkable that you would have somebody do that.
I want to jump back to that low point, goalie. at the beginning of the month in September when you said they're in Tampa and things look about as bleak as they had been all season long for a team that had the talent at this point, but they just weren't playing well. When do you think it clicked? What caused it to click? Was it that meeting they had? Was it something else?
I mean, they didn't play great after the meeting the next couple of games. It didn't help that they faced Chris Sale a couple of days later in Atlanta either. That's typically when you hold a meeting, you wait till after Chris Sale pitches, and you go up against the guy up from Gwinnett. In that case, people could disagree with this, and that's completely fine. I don't know in situations like this if you can ever point to something and say, evidence, this is why, right here. This is the reason. One thing that I've been just shouting from a mountaintop for years is, and I'm sure I've said it to you guys, maybe even here on your pod, is that you just never know when a team is going to get hot. You just never know. And there oftentimes are no signs of it happening. It's not like, like when Julio's struggling in April and May, and we all say the same thing. Oh, well, you know what? Boy, he had a hard fly out to left field last night. Sign of things to come, maybe? Good to see Julio get the ball in the air. Like, it doesn't work like that for 26 players. Like, it can so easily go from down and out to on top of the mountain in 5 days and then roll. Now, if you're a really bad team, and we all know the bad teams in baseball, that's a different story. Like, the Rockies aren't going to go get hot, right? The Rockies aren't going to go win 10 of 11. Like, they just don't have the talent. But if you're the Mariners in the last handful of years, and you've had a talented team, and this year the most talented team they've had in a quarter century, there's no reason why on any given day it doesn't start right now and you get hot for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. And that's what happened. I can't explain it. I can't explain why the Mariners won whatever it was, 14 or 15 games in a row the last time they made it to the playoffs and it propelled them to the postseason. Can you circle the meeting? Yeah, maybe. I wasn't in the meeting. I have no idea what was said. Is that a coincidence? Is it not? Is it part of it? It's probably part of it. Like, I don't think I would say that that's the reason. I think there's just a really talented team, and they finally kind of put it all together. And they put it together at exactly the right time for weeks on end, and they rode it into the playoffs. Like, good on them. They could have done that in April. They could have done that in June. They decided to do it at the very back end of the season, which, quite honestly, actually made it a little more fun. So I would much rather them have the sequence be what it was, which is be down and out and then hot as the sun going into October, than being hot as the sun and then down and out going into October, right? And just scraping in. Obviously, the order of operation that they chose to do it in was much preferred.
So it was the Etsy witch then?
That's exactly right. And all the facial hair. Yeah, Dan's Super Trooper mustache obviously made a big impact.
Do you have a pick of a success story for the year for the Mariners? And I'll ask you this before we get into some more playoff talk, I should say. But of all the different storylines we've watched this year, is there one guy that you say this was the success story for the team this year?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, there isn't a guy where you're like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there isn't a player where you're saying like, oh, we've just waited forever for it to all click, and then it clicked. Like, Julio did Julio things. Randy was Randy. I mean, Cal, nobody expected this, but he's been a productive player for years. We would all obviously agree on that. Woo's taken it to the next level, but I don't think, are you guys surprised by what Bryan Woo has done?
No.
I always thought he had the potential to be this, so no.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think, nobody would have guessed he would go 6 innings every start for an entirety of basically a whole season.
Sure.
But, like, that's kind of niche-y. I think more to, like, the root of your question, like, his overall numbers don't surprise anybody probably. You know, truthfully, the stories that I just kind of, that resonate with me the most, believe it or not, is maybe Dom Canzone. Mm-hmm. Like, I look at a lot of this stuff from the lens of a young dad. I've got 3 kids. My oldest is almost 11. He plays a lot of baseball. And I remember talking to Dom earlier this year once So he comes up and he hits that home run in Arizona, right? And at that time, you're like, oh, fun story. But then he backs it up, and he backs it up some more, and then he starts playing against lefties, and he's in there every day, and he's a real contributor. And I remember talking to Dom in his locker somewhere in the middle of that timeline, and I was just really honest with him. I said, hey, man, like, you were nowhere on the radar this year for the Mariners at a certain point. Like, you guys remember he came up at some point this season, was with the M's for like 4 or 5 days, like had a pinch hit at bat, struck out, and then they sent him back down.
I mean, he was reassigned to minor league camp early in spring training.
Yeah, like we all know like what he could be, you know, if he like lives up to everything that every scout has ever said about him. But he was on the dark side of the moon in Tacoma like for months. And there was no chatter, no talk of like, hey, what's Dom Canzone doing? Or, you know what this team could really use? Another left-handed outfield bat like Dom Canzone. Like, that was nowhere in the realm of conversation for the Mariners. So for him to come up and do what he did and to be a staple in the lineup, I find really inspiring. And when I had this conversation with him, I just said, like, how did you do that, man? Like, how did you stay afloat, stay mentally engaged, and not just want to kick rocks every day? And his answer was remarkably genuine for as kind of cliche as it was. Like, it really resonated with me. He was upset. He was disappointed. But he said, I just knew that when I was down in Tacoma, I had no other option but to be the best outfielder that I could be in the Pacific Coast League. Like, that's where I was planted right now. Like, that's where I have to shine. And he also knew that when he came up, like, you guys know this, you only get so many cracks at this. Like, he took advantage of his opportunity and ran with it. And I bring it back to, like, being a dad and, like, when you talk with your kids about playing sports, all these, one thing I tell my kids all the time, especially my oldest, is, like, when you go and you look on a field in the major leagues, every one of those guys, every one of them has had a remarkable amount of failure in their career. Like, an insane amount of failure. And it struck me even on Sunday when Clayton Kershaw was pitching. I mean, think about his postseasons, right? I mean, his games against the Cardinals. Like, the amount of October failure that one of the game's greatest left-handers has gone through. Like, nobody would want to go through that. Like, none of us could handle that mentally. And so to see Canzone have such a limited impact and be such a small blip on the radar for the Mariners, and then to come up and to, obviously he's not carrying the team, like he's not an aircraft carrier for the Mariners, but he's a complementary piece that they really needed and that really contributed. I just find it really inspiring. It's one of those things where it's like, that's something I want to point to my son and say, like, look what he did, man. Like, nobody was watching him. Nobody was paying attention to him. He's down in Tacoma, and he comes up here and boom, takes off. So stuff like that, like, if you're going to be a playoff team, you want to make a deep run, you need guys like that on the periphery of the Julios and the Randys and the Cals, and the list goes on and on. Like, you need dudes like that, and great credit to Dom Canzone.
He had the
and I want
second
to throw
highest.
Jorge Polanco in there too.
Oh.
I mean, he last year looked toasted. He probably had the best track record of success of anyone on this roster, but just for some reason was, whether it be injury or adjustment, was just not good last year. And then he manages to turn around on a prove-it deal with all the pressure in the world on him and puts together not only a good season, he puts together his best season. Hitting in this ballpark, I think, is remarkable, really. I know he's good. I didn't think he was this good.
Yeah, like, I agree, and I see where you're coming from on that totally. I was fairly bullish on him, whether he was with us or the Astros, just because, I mean, how old is he? 30, early 30s.
31, I think.
31, yeah, that's what I thought. Like, it's hard to believe, but yeah, I think it's 31. I just didn't think he was cooked at 31. Like, it was, once he had that surgery in the offseason, at least to me, and I have nothing to point to other than just my own bias and emotion, I was just kind of the thought, well, I don't think he's cooked at 31. He's been too productive for too long. And whether it's with the Mariners or with somebody else, he'll have, at worst, a productive season, right? And he had more than a productive season, a season that we didn't really, nobody saw him going from third base to back to second base as much as he did necessarily, but it filled the need for the Mariners. And yes, it's been very good to see him be the guy that they thought they traded for. He just came a year too late, but not late at all because of where the Mariners are right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Even back to the Canzone thing, he's got the second highest OPS on the team behind Cal. Smaller sample, but crazy.
Yeah, like every day I sort. I've got like a Fangraphs custom leaderboard that I build for all of the Mariners hitters and the opposing hitters, and I always sort it by WRC plus, just kind of give you an initial cursory review of everything. And for like forever, it's been Cal and then Canzone 1, 2, and I just every day when I refresh that list, I think, is this really true? Like, is this glitching somehow? But yes, obviously a small sample size. There's nothing he can do about that. But all he can do, right, is be productive when he's called upon, and he's been exactly that. So it's been. I'm just so happy for him, for a guy who, I mean, if that path stayed the same for him, he would have gone into this offseason not really knowing what the rest of his career was going to look like. I mean, there's a lot of question marks around him. So good on him for being able to capitalize on the opportunity given to him.
So the wild card round has started now that we're recording here on Tuesday. The matchup we're looking at here to start, I mean, we can look at the entire American League, but what we really focus on and who the Mariners are going to play is starting on Saturday, either the Tigers or the Guardians. We told you pre-recording, Goldie, Lyle and I are on opposite sides of this. I'd rather play the Tigers. Lyle would rather play the Guardians. How much thought have you put into this?
Yeah, a decent amount without being, like, maniacal about it. I'll preface this by saying, be careful what you wish for, right? Anybody can beat anybody in October. I would rather face the Guardians. One, they don't have Tarek Skubal.
That's what I said.
Which is, after today in particular, when he struck out 13 or 14, just, I don't want any part of that. Now, Gavin Williams, no joke. Gavin Williams shoved against the Mariners. That might have been the best game that Gavin Williams pitched all year, outside of that near no-hitter he had in New York this season. Like, he looked diabolical when he faced the Mariners. So, again, be careful what you wish for. But he's not Tarek Skubal. I can guarantee you that. So that's part of it. The other thing is, like, the Guardians don't have Riley Green. Spencer Torkelson isn't, like, incredible, but he scares me a little bit in postseason just because he hit 30 home runs. There's just some bats, like Kerry Carpenter. I don't like all 3 games in the lineup, or not 3 in divisional, all potentially 5. Like, that's just a really good left-handed bat, which the Mariners do not match up well against just because of their right-handed starting pitching. So, like, those are some names offensively. For the Guardians, now I will also say the Guardians took 2 out of 3 against the Mariners, right? So, in the back half of the season. So this isn't to say that the Guardians are nobodies. We all have a tremendous amount of respect for Cleveland. They do the most with seemingly the least every year outside of maybe Tampa. The only guy that scares me in that lineup is Jose Ramirez. Like, Manzardo's got almost 30 tanks, and he hit one against the Mariners. More than one, I think. Like, he'll park one over the fence, but, like, the only guy I'm really afraid of is Ramirez. And Kwan's a great player. I mean, any team would want to have Stephen Kwan. And people go ballistic over all the contact that he makes. But, like, are you scared of Stephen Kwan? You're only scared of Stephen Kwan in certain scenarios and in certain situations. Like, if a base hit wins it, that's the last guy I want to see. Right? Like, it's the Jacob Wilson factor. But, like, in 4 at-bats in a game, there's a chance he doesn't scare you in any of them. Again, I love Stephen Kwan. If he was a Mariner, rock on, man. That'd be sweet. But he really scares you when he's in a lineup with more damage around him. And that's obviously not the Guardians. Now, the Guardians have a ton of left-handed hitting. You know, I talked about Kerry Carpenter. Like, they have a ton of left-handed hitting. But unlike Carpenter, who hits it over the fence and plugs the gaps, the Guardians don't do that as much. So for those reasons, I lean on rather seeing Cleveland. But I can't emphasize it enough. Either team could sweep you. They just could. It's October baseball, man. Anything can happen.
Right. Stephen Kwan didn't even have a 100 WRC plus this year. So to your point, exactly, in a situation where you just need a hit, I get it.
Yeah.
But he's not a thumper. Not like a bunch of these Tigers bats. That was a lot of my reasoning is Guardians have one real bat and otherwise don't have a level of an ace like Tarek Skubal.
And honestly, the Guardians thing, no Class A, I don't. This is as obvious of a point as there is. Like, if you don't have Emmanuel Clase in your bullpen in October, you're just not as scary. Mm-hmm. Like, you're just not. Now, the Tigers don't have. They've never had an Emmanuel Clase, right? Like, Will Vest closed it out today in Game 1, and he was amazing. So, like, again, anything can happen, and he's a good pitcher, but not having arguably the best closer in baseball for a postseason run changes things immensely.
Not to look ahead too much, do you peek at the other side of the bracket as well and have some ideas?
By other side, you're referring to National League or just the other side?
No, the other side of the American League bracket.
Yeah, I do, just from a very selfish travel standpoint. And honestly, it's less travel because you're gonna fly 5 to 6 hours for any of these teams, right? Like it has nothing to do with travel time. It has everything to do with just ballpark and vibes and places I like to call games. Calling a postseason game at Fenway, I think would be incredible. Like, that'd be sick. Fenway's my favorite ballpark to go call a game at, so that'd be pretty awesome.
Who's the scariest?
I haven't thought about it at all from a strategic standpoint. That's all way down the line. I'm looking at just from where I want to call a game from. So that's admittedly a very selfish viewpoint, but we haven't gotten far enough to look beyond that yet.
Do you have a team in the American League not named the Mariners that you think is the best or the scariest?
No, I don't. And that's not to take anything away from any of those teams. Like, the Yankees scare you just because of Judge, honestly. Like, he could just win a series by himself. Like, Judge and Stanton alone, right? Like, especially with what Stanton did in October last year. But at the same time, I think in a longer series, the Yankees' flaws become more exposed. Like, their kind of sloppiness and lackadaisical baseball that they can play that we saw last October, I think that gets exposed more in a longer series. The Blue Jays have been very vulnerable on the road this year, man, but they've been unstoppable at home. Like, that's just the way that they've played. They don't scare. No, none of those teams scare me.
Yeah,
like I remember when go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that the team the two of us said we wanted to stay away from for a while was Boston because they were really good in all three phases. But the Roman injury really adds a tough wrinkle to their season, I think, into their postseason avenue, where they're just not the same team without him.
No, I agree. I mean, that's pretty evident. I totally agree with that. Anytime you have a clear horse number one, we talked Skubal, obviously they have Crochet, that you kind of feel like that's a tough mountain to climb, although it can be done. Honestly, the team earlier this year when we played them in the regular season that I thought, man, this is going to be a nightmare in October is the Padres, which is my absolute World Series hope. Mariners-Padres World Series would be bananas. Like, that'd be the greatest. Now, the Adam injury changes things, right, to their bullpen, but I hadn't seen another team this year shorten a game with their bullpen the way that the Padres did. And even with the Adam injury, they still have a lot of that. And just with the guys that they have in their lineup, and namely what Tatis has done in the postseason and Machado, like, those are just two legit postseason performing bats to go along with the really good bullpen, especially 8th and 9th inning, where you're like, man, that's tough sledding, man. If they get a lead in that one, it's probably lights out. But Mariners Padres World Series would be a dream come true.
Last baseball question for me. How do you think this roster is going to shake out? Do you think they're going to go with 3 catchers? Do you think Cole Young's going to make the roster? What are you feeling?
I don't know. If you had Harry Ford on the roster, he's almost like a decoy, right? Like, he's only there as an insurance plan. so that you could hit for Garver. So are you going to – do you forecast needing to hit for Garver often enough that it's worth having – you're essentially burning a bench spot on him? That's – I don't know the answer to that. I think it probably depends on what the other team's bullpen looks like and if that's something that you feel like you could take advantage of. Honestly, I was surprised Cole Young stayed on the roster as long as he did to end the year, simply because he was just never playing. And why he didn't go get at-bats in Tacoma. They had a reason for it. I'm sure their reason is better than mine, but I did have the question at least. To me, it comes down to, like, is Samad Taylor on this roster? You go Leo Rivas, you go Samad Taylor. Leo's got more defensive versatility. He gives you I haven't seen a lot of Samad Taylor, admittedly, in a Mariners uniform, but based on what I've seen from Leo, I'm going to say he probably gives you a better at-bat if you need it. But Samad can get you a bag. He'll go get you a bag with the best of them. Right? And in October, maybe that's all it comes down to. Like, he's maybe on that roster just for that one time you need to go get a bag in the 8th or 9th inning.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of talked about this. I wonder if Rivas and Samad Taylor are both there. Despite not seeing Samad Taylor much of the year, is he in their Terrence Gore role? Is he the Mariners' Terrence Gore in the postseason?
Remember when the Mariners lost Haggerty before the playoffs in 22? Now, Haggerty hit well, right? Like, he played a good out. Like, he was more than just a runner. But we all remember that feeling of like, oh man, what if they need to get a bag late in a game, and now the one guy who could do that off the bench is not available? Like, that's what Samad Taylor would be. Honestly, if they were both on the roster, to your point, that wouldn't surprise me. Because it really, neither one of them are going to realistically put a bat in their hand, but you are needing the versatility off the bench to be able to go either swipe a bag or if you pinch hit for somebody and you need somebody to go put a glove on. So they both give you tools. They both would have value, and I could see both of them being on there. Using a spot for Harry in October just for the pinch hit thing, I don't know. That seems like a lot.
You could go a man down in the bullpen, especially for the division series where you only think, man, it's like we're going to pitch 7 guys out of the 12 pitchers we have on the roster, 7 or 8 of them.
It definitely changes in a 5 versus a 7. There's no question. Yes, I agree 100% with that. Well, good point.
So we'll see. I think they're going to end up doing 3 catchers. I think it really allows you to be as versatile as possible within that 5-game series, and then you reevaluate for however much pitching you'll need for a championship series if you advance that far. But right. I guess we'll see. I think we'll know on Friday.
Fair enough.
Last thing for you, Goldie. I was curious, since there were the announcements about Root Sports earlier this week and all the people that you've gotten to work with your entire time here in Seattle. I know most of the on-air broadcast team is going to stay the same going into next year, outside of Jen, who announced this week that she's not going to continue forward. But everyone else that you worked with behind the scenes, do you have any stories or favorite memories from working with them that, now that you can reflect on and think back, how positive it was?
Well, it is sad news. There's no doubt. And it's sad for everybody involved, from somebody who just started at Root a couple of years ago to the people having to make the decision. Nobody wants this to happen. Root Sports, for a lot of people, have been their main avenue for Mariners baseball for decades at this point, for a whole lifetime. So it is really sad to see kind of that era of Mariners baseball on television come to a close. I've been so grateful for all these years to be able to work with basically the same core group of people in the main roles for the Mariners on TV, whether it be Curtis Wilson, who I mentioned, who's been our producer since, the 90s until current day, to our directors, who we had a handful of them this year, to the guys who run the audio, to our cameramen. It's the ultimate team sport. I can't emphasize that enough. And there are so many people in baseball television production that go unnoticed because there's just so many people who make the whole thing run. And so I'm very grateful that the vast majority of all those people will stay and will still be a part of things going forward. It just won't have the root branding on it anymore, and the kind of the behind the scenes structure has changed. But it's a wonderful group of people. They've helped make it so special for me, and honestly, they're just people that I really trust. I really trust professionally. I trust their judgment. I trust how they do their job. So they make my job easier. They make me better. And I'm very grateful that virtually all of them will be continuing on the production side as well.
Last thing. No postseason mustache?
Yeah, that's bad. I can't. I mean, mine barely look better than yours, man.
I actually didn't think mine looked terrible like Monday of last week. But
how long?
This is only like a week.
Have you is that max? Do you think there's any more follicles there, or is that...
I think there's a little bit more, but it's not thick. That's the problem.
I know.
See, yeah, Dan was like...
Dan's filled
Dan's
in,
is like sneaky thick.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I grew a mustache during COVID just for the fun of it. And the whole house revolted. So it's not good. It's pretty bad, actually.
Just not worth it.
Yeah. But I could wear a fake one, I guess. That looked pretty good.
Looks great in your Twitter photo, I will say.
That's true. That's a good point. That's very true.
I'll end on this, and I wanted to make sure I threw this one in there to wrap this up. But a couple years ago, obviously, you started to scale back all the national broadcasts you were doing, some of the college football, some of the baseball where you were traveling. And I know a big part of the reason you said you did that is you felt like you wanted to be as ingrained as in Mariners baseball as you possibly could. Like for the clincher 3 years ago, you were calling a Fox game. You weren't there for it. Is what you experienced in the last few weeks, especially seeing the clincher, did that make that call all worth it?
Yeah, I definitely thought about that driving home from the ballpark after that clinching game when Cal hit 60. I for as disappointing as it was for me to not be there when Cal had the walk-off against the A's in 22, what helped me fall asleep at night was knowing that, probably I wasn't going to be on the call for it anyway. I just would have been there to soak it up. Like Dave probably would have had the TV call, and understandably so. And Rick has the ninth inning on radio. So if I was on radio, I wouldn't have had it anyway. So that in the moment and the months afterwards, that kind of helped me a little bit. But I still missed being there in the ballpark and all the hysteria that came along with breaking the drought. But when I was driving home from the ballpark the other night, it kind of sunk in just how momentous of a night in franchise history that was to win the division and have Cal hit 60 in the same game. And even though I'm kind of in this tweener area with the Mariners, I haven't been there for decades, but I've been there more than a minute. This is my 13th year. And even great franchises don't often have kind of what I would call put it on the wall type of moments, like timeline moments. Those are hard to come by, even for great franchises. And I had never been fortunate enough to be on the call for one of those moments. And to be fair, Cal breaking the drought is maybe the only put it on the wall kind of moment that the Mariners have had in my time with the ball club. So it's not like I've been missing out on these things left and right, but I've never had the opportunity to be behind the mic for one yet. And so when Cal hit 60, I was just so grateful, man, just so grateful that I was there for that and had the opportunity to call it, because those don't come around very often. Not just 60, which obviously we already know how rare that is, but just those kind of moments that you tell people about 20 years from now that you were there for, or that you remember, or that you talk about. And to have it be that guy who's turned into kind of a franchise icon already, I'm nervous to say this early in his career, but he's certainly on that path. To have it be that guy and that kind of an accomplishment. I mean, this isn't like an ERA title or a batting title. This is 60 freaking home runs, man. I can remember being in the minor leagues in Portland, Maine in 2009 as a broadcast intern for the Red Sox AA team. And on Sunday nights, on Sundays we'd have day games, And I was making no money, obviously. And Sunday night, I would typically drive to the local Little Caesars, and I'd buy a $5 pepperoni hot and ready.
Nice.
And which is like the worst pizza in America, right? But it was $5. So I get a $5 hot and ready and a soda. And I'd sit in my old beater car, and I would listen to Gary Thorne call Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN Radio. And I would just be pounding this terrible greasy pizza, listening to Gary Thorne on ESPN Radio. And I remember thinking, like, there's no way I could ever do that. Like, Gary Thorne sounded like something that not in my wildest dreams I could ever get to. Like, the idea of calling Major League Baseball at that time was like flying to the moon to me. And so to fast forward from that guy to the other night when Cal hit 60, that I was there and was fortunate enough to be behind the mic for it, was like, I can't even believe it's the same person living the same life. So I'm very grateful for being able to be there, for Cal being what he is. It takes great players to have great moments, and you can't have any kind of call without a great moment. So I'll always be indebted to Cal Raleigh for that moment in time, and I'm just so happy that I got to be there for it.
And Goldie, we're grateful we get to listen to you every night. So it really is fantastic.
Well,
Goldie, thanks for taking some time for us. You're going to crush it on the playoff broadcasts, and let's hope for some wins. How about that?
Hey, thank you, fellas. Good talking with you.
Well, shout out to Goldie. Hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to those stories about him taking everybody along the way of his ride for calling Cal Raleigh's historic home run chase, because you get into the mind of the broadcaster. I thought that was really fun. I also enjoyed all the playoff talk with him, and we're looking forward to hearing him on the radio broadcast all throughout the playoffs, because it's going to be a fun ride for everybody, for us, for him, for all the broadcasters, everyone. And you can hear it listening to Goldie in that conversation. So, as always, we love having him on. All right, that just about wraps up this edition of the Marine Layer Podcast. You guys know the drill. If you want to listen to the full form podcast, you can do so wherever you get your audio pods. Make sure, if you're listening, to go leave a 5-star review when you're rating and reviewing this podcast, and also downloading the episodes. It really does help. If you're on YouTube, go take a second to hit the subscribe button. You can also leave a like and drop a comment on this video. If you want everything else we're doing and to stay on top of everything we're doing, it's all over at our website, marinelayerpod.com. You can go get your merch, sign up for our Patreon. It's all over there. And you can follow us across social media at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.